Hello, folks. It is time for some more hobby nightmares. It is a Wednesday midweek run through of some hobby nightmares. Tomorrow we will be doing a 40k rant on Space Wolves. Actually, a 1 year or 2 year anniversary of my first video on the Space Wolves, where I decried them being just I was really salty and really angry at them. Whereas tomorrow we're actually going to try and fix them. We're going to examine why they don't work in 40k, and we're going to see how we can fix them going forward. So the first lore video in a little while, but also a 40k rant, so hopefully you join me for that one. Moving on to our first hobby nightmare today, and it is from Styx. Very well. Hello, Styx. And he says, "Howdy North. Hello. You can call me Styx. I have a hobby nightmare for you about a purchase I made on Facebook Marketplace." Ooh. I haven't had one like this for a while. Alright. This is one of those stories. A hackneyed tale about a deal too good to be true. However, mine wasn't a scam. It was genuine. And that was the nightmare. Okay. You, or your audience, might be familiar with suspiciously cheap listings on Facebook Marketplace for Warhammer. These are usually new in-box models listed at 40 to 45% off of their market price, with descriptions ripped straight from the product's barcode, coupled with stock photos of AI-generated images. These have all the markers of an obvious con. One day, I came across an Imperial Knight Quaestoris for $70 with a single stock photo ripped straight from Games Workshop and an equally plagiarized description. It practically screamed scam. However, I was curious. What would actually happen if I bought one of these deals, quote unquote? Okay. Fair. Well, I assume you lose your money. Do you know what I mean? Like, ask silly questions, get silly answers. Fully aware that I might not receive the model, I took precautions. I initiated the purchase through Facebook Pay, utilising both PayPal and a credit card equipped with a robust fraud protection. From behind these 3 layers of defences, I waited. 2 weeks passed by without any communication from the seller. I messaged him twice for an update, but received no response. I waited one more day before concluding that my little experiment had reached its inevitable outcome. As I thought about which payment vendor to contact first, I was surprised to see that the seller had finally sent me a tracking number. Ooh! The plot thickens, alright. While unexpected, there was still an opportunity for this to not go my way. A common tactic for scammers is to distribute fraudulent tracking numbers or just reroute the package in transit. Despite this, I was intrigued and let this go on a little bit longer. Eventually, the package ended up on my doorstep. Okay, this can only go one of a few ways, right? You've got the package now. It's there. You must be almost like, I hope this doesn't work, because if it does, you are now liable for every scam on Facebook. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have a friend of mine who he was addicted to gambling, and I didn't know this at the time. But we went to my local rock bar, right? And there was a fruit machine there, like a gambling machine there. And he was like, we were having a really good time, and he said, I really want to have a go at that gambling machine over there, but I know I shouldn't. And I was like, oh, why don't you just have a go at it? I'll stay here, mind the beers, you go and have a go. He went, all right, fair enough. He put £2 in and won £60. Now, that's not a huge amount of money, I know. But for that to happen to a recovering gambling addict, that's terrible. That's the worst thing that could have happened to him. And he told me years later that he was an addict and he'd gotten over it. But that first win, he was expecting to put a few quid in there, lose a couple of pounds and go, yeah, serves me right. And he walks away. Do you know what I mean? Serves me right. I shouldn't have done that, and he walks away. The fact that he won, it just sucked him straight in, right? I'm guessing you, Sticks, if you won this gamble and you got the model you wanted on your doorstep for 50% off, you would become like a Facebook store gambler, gambling your money on getting maybe fraudulent or non-existing parts, Anyway, Let's see what happened. Opening the package, I was astonished to see a new inbox Night Quaestoris. Oh my god. It was complete and legitimate. I thought to myself, had I stumbled upon a secret third-party market? Little did I know, I was right to be cautious. Underneath the Knight, there was a paper invoice, and it was this normally innocuous piece of paper that turned my good fortune into a nightmare. Feel free to take a sip of tea. I can't, mate. I can't. It's too engrossing. On this invoice was my address, but with somebody else's name and billing address, neither belonging to the seller. Also, it appeared to be from a business and had listed charges for the full retail price of this model, shipping and taxes, nearly 3 times what I had paid the Facebook seller. A sinking feeling had settled in my gut, and I hurried over to my computer to search for this business online. It was a legitimate tabletop gaming store that was hundreds of miles away from myself, the seller and the billing address listed on the invoice. All this led to one horrifying realization. I was an unknowing participant in credit card fraud. The seller had used the store to dropship the Knight to me, and he had charged the order to a stolen credit card. This meant the seller had pocketed my $70 as a profit. This likely left the game store holding the bag, as the transaction would likely be disputed as fraudulent. Wow. Wow. So what he's done, he's got a stolen credit card. He's got the Knight with the stolen credit card from the store, sold it to you for $70, pocketed the profit, gave you the model, and now, you know, obviously the store's going to be like, right, the credit card bounced, what the hell? You know, or they're going to be like, right, you know, this credit card's stolen, so I need the money back. And he's gone in the wind, right? Okay. After opening a case with Facebook and emailing the game store, I eventually heard back from both. Facebook got back to me first, and determined it was indeed fraud. They refunded my $70. What, really? The owner of the game store confirmed that the order for my Knight was charged back as fraudulent. I had expected to be met with well-deserved anger, but the owner was remarkably kind and understanding about the whole situation. Dude, why wouldn't he be? Why wouldn't he be? It's not your fault. You ordered a model, legitimate model from Facebook, and you were scammed too. So why would he be annoyed? You know? He had only requested that I, if I wanted to, pay part of the Knight's value to him, citing a recent store-wide sale, and the fact that I had paid the scammer only $70. After forwarding him my conversation with Facebook, I paid the store the full amount it had lost, $210. Dude, you're a good man. You're a good man. I would just give them the $70. I'd be like, I'm not being out of pocket, right? Like, you know, I got scammed too, so we're both scammed here. I was aware it might be a scam, but I wanted to take the chance, right? I wanted to take the chance that I might lose $70. Fair enough. Do you know what I mean? It is what it is. But at the same time, like, I'll give you the $70 that I got, no problem. But I don't think I'd pay for more than that. You're a good man. I'm like, yeah, I paid $70 for this, and I was prepared to lose $70. I'm not going to lose more money than that for doing the right thing. Do you know what I mean? That's not fair. So no, I'll give you the $70. No problem whatsoever. You can even have the Knight back if you want. You can have the $70 and the Knight. There you go. I don't mind. I wouldn't bother me at all. But if they say no, keep the Knight, and we want $210 for it, like, no, I'll drive it to you. I'll send it to you in the post. I don't care. I'm not paying for it. You know what I mean? Because there's a reason why you got it for $70, not $210. But you are a very good person for doing that. I don't think I'd have done it, but I'd have been fair with them. I think you've gone above and beyond, to be honest with you. Way above and beyond. What do you think, guys? Am I being unfair in the comment section? Am I being a dick? Because I would literally give them the $70 back, or the model. Or both, if they want them. I'd be like, yeah, you can have them both back, no problem, you know? Anyway. I wish I could close this with a happy ending, but sadly, the store closed 2 months later. This had been due to the aftershocks of COVID. Although the owner did let it slip that he he had to completely pause online Games Workshop product orders because of my situation and several others like it. I love my local hobby shops, and initiating this kind of damage to a similar business still eats me up a little on the inside. Yeah, I know. It's when doing the right thing isn't always the right thing. You know, it sucks. Unfortunately, there are many other sellers like this one, and I encountered regarding Warhammer-related things on Facebook. I speculate it's just one method to launder money through hacked Facebook accounts, but I don't know for certain. Here are some commonalities shared with my story to look out for your listeners. Okay. If it's listed for 40 to 45% to 50% off of retail price. If it has 1 to 5 images that are stock, AI generated, mismatch and or copies of eBay listings. If it has the product description ripped straight from the corresponding EAN UPC, European Article Number, Universal Product Number, barcode. If it sells a hodgepodge of other unrelated items, power tools, cookware, designer clothing, etc., meeting the previous conditions. The profile selling these have been dormant for several years and have only recently become active. Alrighty. All things considered, it was misfortune to not get scammed. Even though I had got what I bargained for, I ended up paying 3 times that I had originally intended in order to make things right. I don't think you made them right, mate. I think you made them over right. Okay? The process of the store wasn't good for them to get scammed that many times, right? They needed to look at that. And you were willing to lose $70 on a gamble of maybe getting a legitimate product for a legitimate reason, right? So you did it. And you got the model. Then you realised it had done somebody wrong somewhere down the line, and you contacted them to make that right. If they then say, you know, we don't want the model back, but maybe put something towards its cost, I would be saying, yeah, I will do. There's $70 that I paid for it. No problem. But I'm not losing any money for doing the right thing. Sorry. Like, I'm not. Like, it's just not going to happen. You know, I think you went way above and beyond, to be honest with you, to pay for the full thing. But hey, that's just me. And to those that hear this story and still think buying stolen Warhammer at a discount is justified, kindly direct yourselves to the sea of your preference. Thanks for taking the time to read this, North. Love the content and community you've helped create. Hope you hit 40k subscribers sooner than expected. Cavet and Emptor sticks. Cheers, man. Yeah, I mean, don't buy stolen Warhammer stuff. I think we're all in agreement there. That'll be a ridiculous thing to do. Please don't do that. You devalue the whole hobby as a whole. And, yeah. I'm on your side when it comes to, you know, recasts and 3D printing. Yeah, no problem. You know, Games Workshop, as far as I'm concerned, are no longer providing a service that is worthy of your money. And so you are free to go and get your models from wherever else you want. Just don't steal from other people, small businesses, you know? That's not good. Not good at all. And don't empower those who do, you know? Anyway. Fedora says, hello, North. I'd like to say I really appreciate the advice you give your subscribers about self-respect and healthy relationships. Better men make for a better world. I agree, mate. Because as much as other people want to say otherwise, we lead the world. So, you know, if your leaders, if your kings, if your chiefs aren't doing well, mentally, everybody suffers. And we don't want that. Anyway, on to it. Story number 1. Nearly 20 years ago now, I was dating a girl I'd met at work. I was upfront about my hobby interests, and she never batted an eye. In the first month we were dating, she was spending the weekends over at my apartment. My weekly fantasy group met every Sunday morning at our local store, and she was interested enough to come along. My friend Chris, who I was getting into the hobby, showed up to give us a ride and maybe get in a small game. My new girlfriend helped me carry my boxes of models down to my friend's car in the parking lot, and we both hopped in. As we pulled out to the apartment complex and onto the main road, there was a strange screeching noise, followed by a sound like shattering glass. My new girlfriend had left my bits box on the top of the car, and it had just slid off the roof and into traffic. Oh, God. Context. I believe there are 3 categories of Warhammer enthusiasts. There are players, painters, and modelers. We all prioritise those 3 categories differently, but I am a modeler first and foremost. Further context. My first fantasy army was vampire counts, and I couldn't stand the idea of any 2 of my 60 skeletons having the same weapon or shield. Yet more context. I was a poor young man in an expensive hobby. There were no plastic kits for Graveguard or Black Knight back then. A pair of Metal Guard or a single Knight cost $8 per pack. I could never afford them, so I had assembled my 20 Guard and my 10 Knight from scratch. In other words, from my bits box. Every Saturday I rifled through my store's used bits for spare body parts and weapons, and even back then, my bits box was massive. It was the heart and soul of my hobby, and it had just exploded across 20 feet of dusty road. The 3 of us caused a minor traffic jam over the next 10 minutes while we frantically scooped up the bits of plastic and pewter from the street. I'm sorry to say that the bits box incident was the end for us. My friend Chris never came out for another Saturday gaming session. My new girlfriend, however, stuck it out. We are married now with children, and I know I'll spend the rest of my life with this woman. Side note, the reason I started out with this mini story is because when I told my wife I was writing into you with a hobby nightmare, she pursed her lips and asked, "Are you going to tell them about the time I dumped your bits box in the road?" I guess I've never let her forget it, and I was so amused by the memory of that horrible day that I just had to share it. I'm American, so please no tea sipping, it triggers me. Have a coffee. No, fuck you. Where's my tea? Where's my tea? Oh. I wasn't even going to have a sip of tea there. Oh, lovely. Oh. As that guy says in Bronson, nothing closer to my heart than a cup of British char. Right. Let's move on, shall we? Story number 2. I am the nightmare in this one. I played Warhammer Fantasy from 5th edition in the late 90s up until the end of 8th edition in 2015. Fair enough. Sometime during 6th or 7th edition, I was playing an Orcs and Goblins army themed around the Savage Orcs. Now, I'm not normally a that guy, but considering I always played heavily themed and usually fluffy lists, I decided to make an exception for this army. In Fantasy, when you wanted to take a mount for your character, the character entry in their army codex rules simply stated that the character can be mounted on this, or that, or the other. Very simple. So it's like a horse or a donkey. Right, yeah, fair enough. Very simple. The wording allowed you to take one of the mounts listed in the character's entry. But the Orcs and Goblins codex had something extra. Have to stop you there, dude. It's not a codex, it's an army book. Come on now. Characters could take magic items, and listed in the Orcs and Goblins magic items lists was something called a cybor. It basically said it counted as a mount and had its own stat line. Now, here is where I started gaming the system. There was no actual rule in the main rulebook that said a character couldn't take more than one mount. They simply relied on the wording of the individual codices to limit a character to a single mount. So, I put my Savage Orc Warboss on a chariot and took the cybor. I modelled the chariot with a third boar, pulling it and spent the rest of the edition getting eyes rolled at me. I even took this character to a local tournament and it was ruled as completely legal. In my own defence, I was never a power gamer and the rest of my list was so fluffy and themed, my loophole warboss was rarely better than an even split. To this day, I refer to him as a glass blender. If he hit home, it was a bloodbath. If my opponent put the slightest effort into killing him, he went down like a lead balloon. Thanks for the channel. I love how you try to stay positive and give good advice, even during the worst hobby nightmares. Cheers. Okay. Can someone, fantasy people, can you explain to me why that's broken? Because I'd love to give feedback there, but I think I can't. It doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. You know what I mean? It seems like you've got a beefed up mount as your chariot. You know? Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Daniel says, Frenemies Sour Gaming Weekend is the title. Hello, Northern Exile. I hope this correspondence finds you well. You can call me Daniel. I enjoy listening to Hobby Nightmares whilst walking my dachshund, Bruno. Good. I appreciate your hard work producing the series. Hopefully you don't let your dog run into a road because you're listening to your own story here. I have been involved in Games Workshop hobbies since the late 90s, spending entire summer holidays as a young teen gaming in my local Games Workshop store in the West Country. I am in my late 30s now, and through time, I have retained a connection to Games Workshop, reading Black Library fiction, subscribing to White Dwarf, or occasionally painting and building. I have always enjoyed the incredible artwork commissioned and produced for these settings. Artists such as Carl Bakinski and Raymond Swanland led me to another nerd property that became a passion of mine around 2014-2015, Magic the Gathering. Through Magic the Gathering, I reconnected with two friends from 6th form college, Diesel and Pete. We began to play Magic's multiplayer variant, Commander, semi-regularly. Okay. Eventually, we would round out our playgroup with a fourth member, Sheldon, who went to senior school with Diesel and Pete, and whom I had known since nursery school. That's kindergarten for user who are in the US. We had many game nights over the coming years, developing our personalities at the table along the way. Pete was stoic, Sheldon was a pacifist at times, I thought of as lucky, and Diesel just blustered quite a lot. Diesel and I became something of sworn frenemies at the table, neither of us covering ourselves in glory at times. On one occasion, I waited for Diesel to concede and scoop up all of his cards before playing a card that would save us both from Pete. On another occasion, that must have made him salty. On another occasion, Pete played a card that he hadn't realised was on the banned list. We all agreed to let it slide. That was until Pete did something in-game that Diesel didn't like, and Diesel then demanded the banned card be removed from play. Diesel and Pete started families, Sheldon already had one, and I got married. We still played, although less frequently. Eventually, my wife and I decided to move to the northwest, to be closer to her family, and to get more value for our money. Well, welcome to God's country, my friend. Welcome to God's country. Once my wife and I had settled into our new home, we arranged for the group to come visit, and for us to have a bit of a gaming weekend. I think everybody was excited about a few days playing Magic the Gathering, family free. They arrived on a Friday evening after a 3-hour drive, and immediately we began to play and to drink. Stopped briefly to walk to the pub at the end of the road for some food and more drinks. We played and drank into the night. Pete eventually went off to bed as he struggled to stay awake past 9 p.m. We've all got a friend like that. And if you don't, it's probably you. The last game ended when Diesel began to take infinite extra turns whilst drunk with a deck he had borrowed from his brother. He had no idea how to bring the game to a close, but Sheldon and I conceded rather than watch any more of his drunken solitaire. The following day, after a late breakfast, my wife very kindly dropped us to the historic Roman city a short drive away. Chester! You've gone to Chester, hooray! Or Diva, as it was called back then. When I planned to find a table at a local game store in town, naively, we rocked up in the late morning and found the place packed with screaming D&D kids, neckbeards playing 40k, and no empty tables in sight. Those are the two banes of stores these days. If you're a normal hobbyist, right, and you want to just go into a store to do some painting or to chill out or to, I don't know, if the neckbeard 40k players and the screaming D&D kids are the two sections are just the bane of you when you go in. No offense if you play either of those two games, obviously. A shame, but no problem. As I planned to take them out to my favourite spot for lunch anyway, we were all hungry and a little hungover. Unfortunately, the whole city was buzzing that day, and the restaurant in question was also full, spilling out onto the street. My next plan was to find a board game cafe where we could hire a table and finally play some cards. The city was hipster enough, so it was bound to have such an establishment somewhere. A quick Google search revealed a cafe a short walk away. We arrived, and the bearded gentleman behind the counter said he could book us a slot, but the table wouldn't be available for an hour. We found a bar around the corner for a liquid lunch. After a few cocktails, an hour had passed, and it was finally time to game. Most casual Commander games can be broken down into 3 broad phases. Phase 1, getting set up. Phase 2, building a board and starting a clock that leads to a win. Phase 3, going for the win. Each player starts the game with an opening hand of 7 cards, in which you need a good mix of lands and spells. Lands are the resources that players use to cast their spells. Typically, players can only play 1 land on each of their turns. Spells are cards such as creatures, artifacts, enchantments, instants, and sorceries, which in a nutshell are used to lower an opponent's life totals to 0. Outside of some powerful broken archetypes, it's extremely difficult to play games without lands. In Commander games, many players will mulligan, drawing several new cards if their opening hand contains less than 3 lands. We begin the game and are coming to the end of Phase 1, getting set up. The game was balanced. I was slightly ahead on the board, but nothing one turn cycle couldn't bring crashing down. Diesel then decides to play a spell that destroys all artifacts and enchantments. Annoying, but not usually the end of the world. Except in this game, Sheldon had already played a spell that makes all permanents on the board into artifacts, including lands. If Diesel's spell resolves, it will effectively restart the entire game, leaving each player with only what they have left in their hands. Most of the scene frown upon mass land destruction, which invariably leads to players being unable to meaningfully contribute to the game. There are exceptions for certain glass cannon strategies, but ideally, games need to be brought to a quick end after such spells resolve. I look at my hand. Not a single land in sight. Diesel and I begin to quarrel, as we often did. It's a small space, and the atmosphere is beginning to sour. Despite my protestations, Diesel resolves to cast the spell, and everything on the board, including all of our lands, is destroyed. The game continues predictably. Someone is missing land drops. And that somebody is me. Turn after turn, I draw a card and it's not a land. I become a 0 factor in the game, and the others at the table begin to ignore me entirely as I offer nothing to them. I am livid, and it shows. The day hasn't gone to plan. We wasted time elsewhere, then waited and paid for the table, and now I am a spectator, not even playing the game that I came here to play. Petulantly, I began to play solitaire on my phone. Diesel takes the occasional dig at me from across the table. The only saving grace for me is that Diesel is knocked out of the game first, killed by Sheldon after overextending himself. I openly celebrate this. The game winds down, but the damage is done. You can cut the tension with a knife. All over a collectible card game. How embarrassing. We return to my place, but don't play much more Magic that weekend. Instead, opting for Exploding Kittens and Sushi Go. On Sunday, people make their way home, and I drop Diesel off at the train station. I have been a dick at a Magic the Gathering table on more than one occasion. This was the weekend that made me resolve to never do it again. Since I have joined a gaming club just over the border in Wales, some of the regulars expressed an interest in Magic the Gathering, and now there is a flourishing group with people playing weekly, for which I am grateful. We try to focus simply on having fun games, where everybody at the table gets to contribute and do their thing. Not without its challenges, of course, given the power creep inherent in modern Magic the Gathering, but the group has largely policed itself. I still play with Diesel, Pete and Sheldon whenever I am back in the West Country and the stars align. We've been friends for over 20 years, and I have a lot of love for each of them. We've not had a gaming weekend, though, since. Cheers, Dan. Wow. Well, to be honest with you, man, I'm going to be completely honest. There are certain friends who, how do I put this, aren't meant to do games together, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't play with these friends at all, right? Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. I'm not here to judge, but there are certain friends who definitely, definitely just rub each other up the wrong way, aren't compatible in their play style. You know, you seem to be the kind of guy. You remind me of me, okay? I'm the kind of guy who generally organizes things for his friends. I'm kind of the glue, and I know a lot of you out there feel the same way about yourselves, right? All of your friends know each other through you, right? So you organize going out and doing things. And when things don't go to plan, you feel like it's a failure on your part or a personal slight on you, After a while, once 4 or 5 things don't go your way, you're generally like, oh my god, I hate this. I want it to go well. And when you organize a game of 40k or a game of Magic the Gathering, and you end up being the butt of the joke, or you end up going out pretty early, it's really hard to sit there and not like stew and think, well, this is my day. Like, I organize this, and I'm the first one out. This is bullshit. The thing is, in recent years, I've just started to let that go. Right? I don't have that controlling thing in me anymore. I just generally just sit there, chill, and have fun regardless. I try and have fun regardless. And if somebody at the table is being a dick, just call them out for it. So listen, man, I don't mind going out first, but you're being a dick right now. Can you please not do that? Right? The passive aggressiveness is what leads to friends breaking up. Being direct and forthright with your concerns leads to two friends coming together more. Do you know what I mean? It leads to resolving issues. And if they can't resolve the issue, if the other guy goes AWOL because of something that you've said, when you've said, listen, man, please don't do that, then maybe you shouldn't have been friends in the first place, But you've handled it well. You're resolved never to do that again, and I commend you for that. And now you've got a new gaming group where, your skills as an organizer are appreciated, which is good. And you're still friends with those other people as well. But you only play when you see them, rather than doing a scheduled weekend, to which I get. Alright? No problem. Anyway, I love you all long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will speak to you tomorrow for that epic 40k rant about Space Wolves. And on Friday, we'll be doing our week-ending Hobby Nightmares. I love you all long time. Have a good day. And I'll speak to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye now.